guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Kevin again. Guess who just arrived? The prodigal son. This is a pastel banana. That's going to be the guy responsible for doing some breeding here. If you watched the last video, you saw we got the firefly female. So this guy will obviously get paired up with her, and we can get some nice combinations from there. Like I said before about banana, it's a co-dominant, which means half the babies on average will be banana, and then pastel and fire can both play into that. So we could end up with banana pastel, we can end up with banana pastel fire. There's a lot of interesting ways that could work out for us. Also, what we didn't talk about yet is housing your ball python. Are you going to put it in a rack? Are you going to put it in an aquarium? There's several ways. I'm going to be using a rack system, a tote. What you need to remember, the key things with ball pythons is the temperature. You want to have a hot spot of approximately 90 degrees. And you want to have an ambient temperature or a cool side approximately 82 to 84 degrees. That way, if he wants to be warm, he can be on the warm side. If he wants to cool, he'll go to the cool side. Another thing to talk about is hides. Some snakes are much more comfortable in a hide. Again, we talked about before, snakes have a little bit of a personality. Some are more confident than the others. These snakes, some will require a hide to be confident and comfortable, others won't. You put a hide in their enclosure, you watch. If they're using the hide, leave it in there. Let them use it. Now, if you have the hide in there for weeks on end and you see very little use of the hide, then you could probably remove it. Another big thing you want to talk about is the size of the snake versus the size of the enclosure. If you have a snake, say a baby snake, small snake, you're not going to want to put it in a large enclosure. That's going to cause a lot of stress. If you have a small snake on a large enclosure, the only way to get away with that is to put a lot of clutter, make it feel like it's in a smaller space. These snakes do not require large enclosures to be happy. They are very, very happy in small enclosures, tight spaces. That's what makes them comfortable. That's what makes them feel safe. When they feel comfortable and safe, they're going to eat for you, they're going to breed for you, they're going to be happy. If you get a snake and you put it into a 30-40 gallon big aquarium in a high traffic area in your home, unless you have a very confident snake, you're probably going to have feeding problems. Your snake is not going to be comfortable in there. Now, that's not the rule across the board. There are many snakes that are confident and you'll have no problems at all. But over the majority of them, I think you're going to have an issue. So what you want to do is make sure you get the proper enclosure for the proper size snake that you have. Yes, you hear a lot of times, well, my snake's going to grow, it'll grow into the enclosure. Unfortunately, you need to start with a small enclosure and work your way up to the big enclosure. That's really the only way to do it properly. The next thing you want to think about is, what are you going to use for substrate? What are you going to use to put on the bottom of the enclosure for the snake? There's coconut husk, which I prefer. I think it's the best for holding humidity. It's very soft. It's excellent for the snake. There's aspen. That is very good. Doesn't hold the humidity quite as good as the coconut husk, but still a very good option. People use paper towel. You can. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of times when you get a snake in and quarantine it to make sure there's no mites, there's no issues with the snake, a lot of people start out with paper towel because you can see, if there's black spots on the paper towel, the mites, you can see that right away a lot easier than you would on a substrate. Another thing to think about is airflow, ventilation for your snake. You want them to getting fresh air and breathing. You don't want to put them in a tote, seal it up tight, and keep that moist, damp, humid air stagnant. You want to still have ventilation. They require 60% humidity is perfect for them. 65%. Much less than that, then you can start having shedding problems. When they go to shed, they need that moisture in the air, so that shed comes off in one piece, and it's very easy. If you have a dry, humid, dry climate, that's not going to happen. The shed's going to get stuck. You're going to have a mess. You're going to have to build a humidity box and try to get that shed off that snake. So keep your humidity 65%. You can buy a humidity temperature gauge at Walmart, $10–12, and keep that in the enclosure, and you'll know exactly where you stand. If your humidity is too low, add a little bit of water into the substrate. If it's too high, it will eventually come down. Now, you don't want 100% humidity, 90% humidity, but when you start, if you end up at 80–85%, it's okay for a small period of time. It'll come down, let it come down to that 60–65%, and then work from there. There's a lot of ways to raise humidity. I don't recommend spraying. If you spray, you're going to get a spike in the humidity, but then it's going to drop. And what you don't want with these snakes, a spike in humidity up and down a lot of times can give them respiratory infections. And that's going to be an expensive vet visit. So keep your humidity constant and slow changing, just like it would in nature. Let's talk a little bit more about bananas. You see this banana, I don't know if you can see, I'll get it up close. You see it has spots on it. Those are not mites. Banana got its name that way because when they developed, the older they get, they develop those spots, just like a ripe banana would. Different morphs, different genes can affect the amount of spots you get. This being a banana pastel, the pastel gene is reducing the spots. So it does not have as many spots as a typical straight banana would. A straight banana typically will be a lot more spotted. As it gets older, it may develop more spots, but typically with that pastel gene in there, it's not going to develop a lot more than it has right now. You see the other colors on this snake. Very pretty. The banana gene is just amazing. I don't know how you could look at this snake and not think that it's beautiful. And when I explained in my first video, I didn't get too in depth in why I like the banana gene. If you look right there, there's something less intimidating about this snake than say, some of the dark morphs. I think some of the dark morphs are just a little bit more intimidating. Let's talk real quick about feeding. When you get a baby snake, a small snake in, they're probably going to feed a little bit more often than a bigger snake. When they're growing, they're a little more active, their metabolisms are a little bit more active. Probably about every 5 days is a good rule of thumb for a small snake, and they're going to show you. If you go to feed them every 5 days and you're not getting that response that you're looking for, then you can back it off to every 7 days. But 5 days is probably the good rule of thumb for a small snake. A larger snake, every 7 to 10 days is plenty. That will keep them happy, healthy. A snake is very capable of going a long period of time without food and still being healthy. And ball pythons, if you do any research on them, they are and can be very picky eaters. They change their eating habits a lot in breeding season. Males and females will go off food for months at a time, and there's nothing you can do about it. You could give them any appealing meal, ASF rats are considered to be a ball python's a meal that it won't refuse. You could put that in there any day of the week and still get it refusal when it's breeding season. They're focused on that, and they don't eat the females. When they're doing it, they're saving room in their area for making eggs, developing eggs, so they don't want a heavy meal in their body while they're doing that. And again, you can see them 2 months, even 3 months without feeding. The mistake a lot of people make, though, when that's happening is not offering food. When you're not offering that snake food on its weekly schedule, believe it or not, that snake can think that there is not food available in the environment around them and can reabsorb the follicles, reabsorb being able to produce eggs, because that snake feels like when it has its babies, there's not going to be food for it. So be careful with that. If it's breeding season and you are breeding, Continue to offer food every week, even though 9 times out of 10 it's not going to eat. Don't stress the snake out. Don't push it to eat for long periods of time, but let it know there's food available. That's going to help it understand and know, if I have babies, there's plenty of food to feed them, and it's okay to have them. These animals, nature is finicky. Uh, you would not believe, the intelligence that they have in those small things. Just knowing their environment, knowing that if they produce offspring, that they're not going to survive, so they don't produce. It's as simple as that. Just a mistake like that could cause you not to have a clutch of eggs. So continue to offer food, even though more times out of 10 they're not going to take it. It's just the way to do it. We're going to wrap it up here. Hope you learned a little bit today. We got to see our new addition, the banana, and we're going to name him Hurley. I don't know if you guys watch Lost, but kind of inspired me off Lost. So Hurley is the new banana snake's name, and we have Hurley and we have Sapphire. So we have a pair to start pairing up. When you get a new snake in, one, you want to quarantine it. Two, you want to give it about 7 to 10 days without really spending a lot of time with it. The banana just got here, that's why I pulled it out, showed it to you for a few minutes. But typically, get them in their enclosure, get them safe, and let them alone for 5-7 days at least. And then you can offer them food and handling. If they do eat, you want to give them 24 to 48 hours before you handle them. If you handle a snake after it's eaten, it can regurgitate and cause some problems. So once they eat, let them alone, let them digest a little bit, give them 24 to 48 hours before you handle them, and then you can handle them after that. That gives them some time to digest it, and you won't have the problems. But snakes aren't like having a cat or a dog. Your time with them is limited between feeding times. When they're in shed or beginning to shed, you don't want to handle them. There's a lot of times that they're just there, that you can't pick them up, you can't handle them. And then some snakes are just more tolerable of handling than others. You may get a snake that is very, very difficult to handle. It's stressed out, it's upset, and you're going to have to work with it. And some you may never get comfortable. Others maybe you can work with and get them more comfortable by handling. So be careful when you're buying a snake. For what reasons? It's not going to be something that can always be beside you. It's not like a cat or a dog. It's going to require a different set of care, and you're going to enjoy it differently than you would those animals. Your time with it's going to be brief, but they are enjoyable animals, and they're very interesting to keep and to breed. So keep that in mind. You guys have a great day. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe. This journey is really not going to be anything but for me if you guys don't like and subscribe. Come along with me, watch and see what happens. Let's see how this goes. I think it'll be fun. So come along for a ride. Thanks for watching.